Welcome to Untamed Blossoms, the podcast where we celebrate the wild and beautiful journey of womanhood. We're here to create a space where women can connect, inspire, and uplift each other. Untamed Blossoms is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. It's a gathering of strong, fierce women who are breaking free from society's expectations.
Our mission is to deep dive into the stories of incredible women who have embraced their authenticity, even in the face of adversity. We believe by sharing these stories, we can inspire others to do the same. Join us as we sit down with women from all walks of life who have faced their own struggles and emerged as the most authentic versions of themselves. From entrepreneurs to artists, activists to adventurers, we'll explore their triumphs and tribulations. Together, we'll navigate the challenges of self-discovery, self-acceptance, and self-love.
But Untamed Blossoms is more than just conversations. We're a community that gathers for events, immerses ourselves in the beauty of nature, and supports one another in our personal and professional growth. So whether you're seeking inspiration, looking for a supportive sisterhood, or simply want to hear incredible stories of women blazing their own trails, Untamed Blossoms is here for you. Together, let's embrace our wildness, bloom unapologetically, and rewrite the rules. Welcome to Untamed Blossoms.
Welcome to Untamed Blossoms. I'm your host, Amanda Riley.
And I'm Cristi Riley. Welcome to the pod.
This is the first time I didn't need my intro paper.
Well, technically the second. You did it last time without one.
You're right.
You did a good job.
Wow, it only took 22 episodes.
I have so much the easiest part. I struggle with endings, by the way, you guys. If you've ever listened to an unedited part of our the way we end podcasts, I struggle with just letting stuff end.
Just let it go. Yeah. Okay.
Seems weird.
See you never.
Bye-bye. God. Peace.
What are you going to do? Can't be perfect.
We're working on it. It's great. It's a work in progress.
Thanksgiving's over.
It's
officially your birthday week.
It's officially my birthday week.
It's the 4th.
Yes.
5th. 4th. 4th.
Yours
Yours is the 4th. Megan's is the 5th. Kirsten's is
the 10th.
The 10th. There's just a lot of birthdays. And Haley, from Imposter Syndrome episode.
Oh, yeah.
Her birthday is right in here too.
Yeah.
Also many Sagittariuses.
You love Sagittarius in your life.
I do.
I have so many Sagittarian placements in my chart. I can't even describe it to you.
It has to be. That has to be part of our connection.
Yeah.
We both have a lot of Sag placements.
Yes. Yeah. So this has been, we've talked about this before. This is usually it used to be a pleasant season for me. I used to really like the whole, decorating and making the house festive and buying gifts and the hustle and bustle of it. And I will tell you that since my spiritual sort of journey started, it was quite the opposite.
Yeah.
I really struggle in this season. I have a hard time, and I'm really trying to recapture some sort of authenticity to it.
Yeah.
And joy, so that I can have this part of the season back and enjoy the things that I really like about it. And once the family's all together and that time, I love it.
Well, I think we're going to talk about some of it today around consumerism, but I do think that's a big part of not enjoying it as time goes on, is the consuming of gifts or, preparing food or whatever it is just seems to escalate every year.
Yeah.
And I think what helps me is I try to remember that most of what we do for Christmas is based in paganism.
Right.
Pagans decorated trees.
Yep.
There's so many different things that you can make for your home around the holidays, whether it be dried fruits and simmer pots. All of these things are really based on spirituality, not the Christian holiday.
Right.
So I do find it fun for me to kind of troll people and it's interesting because the reason for the season, and if you are religious, of course, love that for you. But then we have this massively consumer driven holiday that just was, really honestly, Black Friday kicks it all off.
Right.
I have gotten more emails in the last 5 days than the last 5 years.
Right.
Truly, because of just the aggressive amount of marketing around deals and sales. And if you
wanting to take advantage, and it's exactly, we're played like fiddles during this time of
Totally.
year.
And Cristi, who's been on our podcast before, she shared this thing on Instagram that is so true. It's also the most vicious time of year for diet culture and diet programs. Oh, you ate all that food on Thanksgiving, try our detox, or try this cleanse. And it's just so predatory on people who just try to enjoy one day, by the way, of eating. And now are trying to sell you on a $200 cleanse.
Right.
And it feels so gross to me.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
So, and then a ton of workout equipment's on sale and all these other, it can snowball quickly.
Well, then they start hitting you after Christmas for the gym memberships, Jan 1,
Oh, yeah.
New
Year's resolutions, baby. How can you spend all your money on this?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's really what prompted us to talk about what we're going to talk about today. So,
yeah, we want to talk about consumerism. I think we're both conscious humans when it comes to the earth. We've talked about that multiple times. Amanda and I love Mother Nature and being out in nature, and some of our current trajectories, is really going to have a detriment to the planet, already having a detriment to a lot of places. And we both watched. I was unfortunately ill. So I came down right after Thanksgiving with some sort of flu. It was really only about 24 hours, but really high fever and felt terrible. And I don't know why you were watching it, but at the same time, we watched the same show at the same time.
It was so weird. Like, you texted me. So I was going to text Cristi about this episode today and like our topic. And I had just gotten home from Thanksgiving with my in-laws, and I was working and decided to put on a Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
I love a documentary.
Me too.
If I
Me
can.
Too. Yeah.
And I had seen this documentary. It is called Buy Now, The Shopping Conspiracy. And I thought, oh, that's something I want to watch. And then I had texted you, and you literally, we must have watched it
at the exact same moment.
That's bizarre.
I mean, it was meant to be for today's topic, is all I have to say.
Yeah. When you said that.
And I thought you had talked about, because suddenly you had talked about a different show that you'd watched, because I'm going to start thrifting from now on. I'm not going to buy clothing if I can help it. Right. Yes. And so I was like, okay, cool. And I thought that it was the show I was watching on Netflix that you had watched. Turns out it was a different show, and that you and I watched this show at the exact same moment and then texted about it.
Crazy.
Yeah, meant to be.
Yeah. And I know that I have brought this up before, but really what got me on, before we talk about this documentary, is over a year ago, I went and watched the documentary called Canary at a theater here in Columbus, Ohio. This Dr. Lonnie Thompson, he basically did research on ice cores to figure out like what's happening, to document Earth's history. And people have never climbed mountains to do the ice cap work because of how strenuous and hard that would be.
Right. Dangerous, I'm assuming, as well.
So dangerous. Yeah. They're hauling equipment. The only way to do it is by pieces up a mountain.
Right.
So you have to find these people who are willing.
Yeah. Snow-covered crevices, they can fall down.
Totally.
All kinds of crazy shit. Yeah.
You can't airlift. There's not enough air up there.
Right.
For helicopters to drop things, right? So he dedicated his whole life. He went to OSU, which is why Columbus and Ohio State's very like ingrained in his work, because a lot of it happened here in Columbus, Ohio, and Kentucky, actually. So anyway, he did all of this work and realized these ice caps are melting at an alarming rate. And he was trying to tell politicians, like, hey, this is what's happening. And of course, if you remember back in that time, you still remember Al Gore, like still trying so hard to save the planet, no one listening to Al Gore.
Right.
But he was really shocked to hear how easily persuadable people were about this isn't actually happening when he's witnessing it. He's watching ice caps be lakes turn to lakes.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean this isn't happening? Like, I'm seeing this history be erased.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to capture this information because the ice caps are melting so fast on these mountains. Like, And these indigenous people that lived on these mountains and were losing their alpacas and llamas and all these other animals because of mudslides from this, right? So the whole documentary was so moving to me because I realized, and you can realize this on an everyday level. It's hard to imagine the impact of global warming when people keep telling you it's not real. It's, whatever. And you might think, no, I know it's real, but these people have immediate impacts. Like mudslides are ruining their lives. And he's trying to explain this and no one's listening. No one's listening. And that really, really changed me. That documentary really changed something in my brain to see all the work he was doing, and his whole life's work is to capture our history of this planet and try to save it, and no one listening to him. He actually zoomed in from a hospital bed. He had just like gotten sick or something and couldn't be there to talk. So he joined us on a Zoom call in this huge screen in a movie theater. And he was telling us some of the things that we could do. He's like, everyone thinks that you can't do anything to reverse this. It's too big of a problem. But if everyone just did a few things, it would help. Which brings me into this documentary, because one of the main things he talked about was just how much we consume that we could just be fixing, or how much we think that we need that we don't. And he's like, I'm not saying you can't use Amazon, but what I'm saying is if you're going to use Amazon, wait for a month, gather all the things that you need, do one shipment of Amazon. The problem is everyone wants everything right now. And you're getting packages after packages who are coming on boats and planes and driving, and all of that in itself is just so detrimental. So that led me to being very interested to this documentary on Netflix.
Which I was surprised by. As soon as my husband saw what I was watching, he was like, oh boy. Because remember, I try things on. I spin around enough.
Yeah.
and I make people look at me in the dress and comment about the dress and pretend that the dress is going to be mine forever. And then I take a sleeve and a leg from the dress, and,
Yes.
or a hem, and then I toss the rest, right? So you never know how deep I'm going to get into one of these concepts as I'm trying it on. And so he was like, oh boy. And, it turns out I was not surprised by any of it.
Yeah.
And I knew all of it, right? In that this was more geared towards the corporations and how we are so targeted and manipulated to buy, and that we need to sell more. And these are coming from people who are part of that industry who have now left the industry because they realize that how detrimental it is to the earth and to people in general. There was a person on there who was my favorite person. Was the website was, I think, ifixit.com. The guy, and he just a normal Joe Schmo dad bod guy who clearly is handy and wants to fix his own shit. And these products are made to be disposable. They're made to not last. And his whole concept is getting you pieces and parts so you can fix your own stuff. And so it's not throwaway.
But what's crazy is how many companies do not want you fixing this.
Not only that, but suing him.
Yeah.
And he's winning those lawsuits, y'all. So, champion to him. And that's a dying breed, right? Like, how many people in your generation and my kids' generation that are going to be able to fix anything?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Like, it's just not something that you do. It's become ingrained, unfortunately, in that things are just disposable and you get a new one.
Or that the future is technology. So why worry about repair when the future is creating?
Like, right after this documentary, I was on Instagram and something popped up about Christmas lights. And it's because our phones listen to us and we've been talking about buying Christmas lights. And the Instagram was this guy, and he was like, oh, you can make $300,000 a year by being a Christmas light installer. And he's like, this guy here, he went to these high-end neighborhoods. He's charging $3,500 a house minimum. And he's like, yeah, it's just lights are so cheap that he puts them up one time and then they cut them out of the trees and throw them away after 1 year's use. They don't even try to save them because it's cheaper just to throw them away and buy them again.
Yeah.
And that came right after this documentary that I watched, right? And so this has become our, and part of this documentary was Amazon throwing stuff away that have been returned because it's easier just to dispose of it. It's more cost effective for them just to dispose of it versus trying to handle a return in the proper ways, right? And so there's been commitments on their part to try to fix it. It's not what I loved about this documentary is that, consumers, we want to change it. We want to fix it. And we have so many of us that I think are in the right mindset to make this right.
Yeah.
And if I would have a choice besides, just between buying organic and not, I buy organic. If you gave me a choice to buy a paper, something in a paper versus something in plastic, I would buy it in the paper. Every time I would.
Yeah.
How many times do you get that chance in the grocery store?
Well,
Everything's packaged in plastic.
I want to say two very clear things of my feelings. Two things can be true at once. One, I think we've become very lazy and accustomed to convenience. And two, the system has built that on purpose, right? So both of these things can be true. So I'm not placing blame on the consumer, I'm not placing blame on the corporation, but at the same time, both are to blame, right?
Both are to blame, right?
Both.
We are being, but I will say that, corporations spend billions of dollars to figure out how to get us to purchase something, right? Because we're easily manipulated. And
it's greed, right? The people that build these companies are not doing it for funsies.
No, it's for money.
So I think it's just interesting going into this conversation, realizing that the only way to stop corporations from bullying us is to stand up to the bully, which is very inconvenient.
Right. And hard. Right? It's hard. It's easy to get on Amazon and be like, and my husband and I talked about this because of the online shopping phenomenon. It's really difficult to go to a local place and find what you need.
Yeah.
Shops are bare. Retailers have very little in their stores because very little foot traffic is happening these days.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, I can't support the local person in every way because I can't find what I need. It's not in existence everywhere, not everything. Yeah. But I do think that this time of year, gift giving, when it comes to sort of finding something personal, finding something nuanced, that this is the place where we can shop locally and can find local artisans and can find ways to give back to your local economy. I listened to somebody the other day that said, for every $1 you spend on Amazon, like 8 cents or something gets to your local government, like your local community, like your local funds, where if you spend $1 in a local store, 68 cents or 78 cents or something like that finds it to the local, economy. Right. Yeah. And so we're supporting big corporations instead of supporting our local economies. And so that's it, shifting that mindset and trying to be mindful of those things. And it used to be that you got in the car and you went shopping.
Right.
And you may not find what you need. That's what you're looking for, right? And then if you don't find it after 3 trips out, you'll be like, I don't really need it. Well, right?
Like, and also sometimes, and that's what someone on this documentary mentioned too. It's like, put it in your cart. Put it in your online shopping cart. And if it's still there in a month and you still need it, fine. But how often are we even pausing because of the convenience of it? And, there are so many times I've been in somewhere and I was like, oh, I was looking for XYZ. I see you don't have it. They'll be like, well, I can order that for you. There's options. It just takes time.
Right.
And
we want the immediate gratification.
Yeah. Or like we see, these outfits being put together on Instagram or TikTok, and it takes 1 second to get that cardigan to your house versus going to maybe 4 thrift stores and you find the one that you want that matches. And it's interesting because there's also a crossroads here of privilege and economic status. And, I follow this woman on TikTok. I'm sure everyone's heard of her now, Dollar Tree Dinners.
Oh, yeah.
And she has been making it affordable for families to make a Thanksgiving casserole for like $5.
Yeah.
And I cannot even watch her videos because I cry like a child every time I'm watching it, because I think how many people are struggling so hard right now. She's teaching them how to use what they can get at the dollar store for an actual meal for their family. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who can't afford to go buy local and do organic produce or grass-fed beef. It's just not financially easy or acceptable or anything in the realm of their possibility. So again, it's just like the policies and where we are, like it creates this gap of people not being able to support local from their own economic standpoint. So, I would love to get into some things that they talked about what we can do. But just know that we are aware that not everyone has the same ability.
Agreed. But I do think that when things were more community based,
that's it.
That the overflow from the organic farmers would go to the people who needed it. They took care of each other, right? Your communities are taking care of each other. Now you don't know your neighbors. You have no idea who they are, or what their status is, or what they need, or if their spouse died, or if they just had a child die, or if they're taking care of their sick parents and are really struggling with their 6 kids, or whatever it is, right? We just don't know our neighbors anymore. We don't.
That is truly the base of all of this. We're not living in a time and space where people care enough about one another to say like, hey, what do you need? Like, what do I know about this person? Like, everyone's so busy and fast paced, and no one takes the time to think like, what can I do to help these people? Or not even like giving handout situation if that person doesn't want that or whatever, but just being in a community situation where you can say, hey, we're having this clothing swap. Come, everyone bring clothes.
Right.
Leave with some new clothes. Great, easy, done. Right. Like, that doesn't even have to be hard.
Nope.
Me and some friends were talking about, hey, why don't we each pick a menu, like a meal item? We'll come over on Sundays. We'll make these 3 meals. Each person is responsible for like a meal ingredient.
Right.
Make it big enough that we all can take 6 meals at each home.
Right.
And so this way we're all not spending a ton of money. And we're also feeding ourselves and our spouses. None of us have kids. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how can we do these things? Yes, they're more time consuming. Yes, you have to get together. Yes, you have to go to the grocery store and pick up the meals. Yes, you have to cook them. But at the end of the day, it's benefiting everybody.
How much fun is that? Now you're getting together every Sunday with your girlfriends and cooking food for your family for the week and making it easier on yourself and having a great time while you're at it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's upside to that as well, right?
Exactly.
There's some serotonin that happens in there, and lots of great feel good hormones and laughing. You know that you're not going to get through a whole Sunday without laughing your ass off about something.
Exactly.
Right? You're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
And that should be what we're focused on. And I just become more and more and more aware of that being what's important in this life, and not going out for a fancy meal. Most of them make my belly hurt or make me itchy somewhere because they're not using great ingredients, or I'm sensitive to them, one of the two. And Stan was like, do you want to go? I've got reservations, this place to go. And I was like, I don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we just stay home? And I would rather you grill me a great steak on our grill, and I know where it came from, and I know what ingredients, and I know I'm going to feel great afterwards, and I'm not going to be itchy or be miserable, or my belly's going to hurt.
Yeah.
I just would rather we have a great house.
Yeah.
We can cook really well. I'm just not that interested anymore,
And it's just really as simple as saying, for most people, if you are someone who likes to cook, if you are, I don't love cooking. I don't think it's a secret. But I love hanging out with people. And if I have the option of saying like, hey, can I pitch in for groceries? And can we have a dinner at your house, right? And maybe you cook and I help bring the ingredients, right? This way you're not in charge of all of that. It's as simple as like leveraging people's skills. And that's what you used to do in community.
Yep.
You would leverage the skills of other people to make up for what you needed. And that's why people were able to support and help one another. It's because we're all different. And that's the beauty and diversity of having a community. Right. Is people are strong at different things.
Right.
And I think you sent it to me, probably 4 other people sent me this thing about like, what if we got back to here, hey, here's a bread starter for sourdough. Yeah. This is your Christmas gift because now you can make bread for how long?
Right.
Right. And here's also the thing. I don't cook bread. Here are the things that you need to continue to cook the bread with this starter.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that's more than $10. And how long would that feed that family? You know what I'm saying? Or, hey, let me teach you how to can goods. Like, I know we give my mom a bunch of crap because she's always out here canning things, but at the end of the day, if there's an apocalypse, I'm going to tell you what house I'm going to try to make it to.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Riley with her canned goods.
That's right.
No one knows how to do that anymore. Right. And it's time consuming. And so, you know, it's just those things where finding the people that know, that have the knowledge, leveraging their skills, giving gifts that help people and prolong.
Right.
I think books are a great example too, is like, there's so many books that can teach us to do so many things. And very few times do people give books anymore.
Right. Right.
So
wasn't it you that sent me the thing that used to be Christmas Eve that it was, maybe that's a Netherlands tradition. They exchange books on Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. And then Christmas Eve and Christmas Day is spent like cozied up reading books for the evening and the day. And that was their gift, right? It was the gift of a good book and a good read. Because it's wintertime and we're supposed to be resting and relaxing and being insular and being with our own self and our thoughts. And I get consumed with this. I need my kids, you know, to make sure everybody's thought of and nobody feels like they're left out, and and it's even, and then nobody has a bad perception, and my daughter-in-laws and my son-in-laws feel included and that they're part of the family. And there's this weird. I just find myself on this hamster wheel, this holiday hamster wheel of owning all of these emotions about people that when I look back and my son and my daughter-in-law have it right. They barely bring gifts to anyone.
Yeah.
And if they do, they're handmade and they're cards or they're a piece of artwork, or, you know, he'll get something for the kids. But for the most part, for the adults, he's like, I love you.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And I've gotten caught up in this, like, making sure that they feel like I love them. Like that if I don't do it right at Christmas, it means I don't love them. Right.
Right.
And really, the only thing that I'm worried about is us spending time together.
Yeah.
And what that looks like and having a good time and being joyful in those moments and not being so caught up in the things that we're giving each other.
Because I think it's just things. Mm-hmm. And when you can be thoughtful, I think two people feel like it's black and white. Either we're not doing gifts this year or everyone's getting a million gifts. And what I love about making handmade stuff, or it forces you to slow down and think about the person.
Right.
And it also forces you to say, like, this is from love, not because I need them to have something in their hands.
Right.
But that is so hard.
It's very hard.
It's so hard.
And my love language is not gift giving.
Yeah.
I don't feel, you know, this is interesting because I was just sick. I take care of everybody.
Yeah.
When I'm sick, I desperately want to be babied by my husband.
Yeah.
I want to be doted on.
Yeah.
I want to be made feel like I'm a princess and that you're going to help me with every little thing.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't happen, I am angry.
Yeah.
I was angry.
Yeah.
If he wasn't at my every whim. and that's a funny thing, right? And now I have to communicate that in a way that I'm like, okay, so I'm just learning this about myself. Is that I'm very resentful at the end of my illness if I haven't received that kind of attention.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think it's because I do dote on everybody else and I give that attention and I want that when I'm sick, right? I don't ask for it any other time, but I do want it when I don't feel good.
Right.
And I feel the most seen when somebody sees me wanting or needing something, even in my day to day, and does it for me on the backside without being asked or expected any of that to happen, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm seen. If you do something for me that I probably wouldn't have done for myself, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case around Christmas, right? Is what should we be doing, right? What should we be focused on?
Well, I think you're saying is everyone has a different love language.
Oh yeah, and giving might not be a love language. Yeah,
and some people it is. So that's what's hard to navigate. Is there's some people in my life who would be devastated to not receive a gift. And I don't want that for them.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that I can't be just more thoughtful
about
what that is. And like I was talking about earlier, this year isn't a year where I can go buy handmade things from local people. I would love that.
Right.
It's not the year for me to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
But what I can do is not buy a bunch of bullshit on Amazon that people aren't going to need. I can buy one thing that I think they would really, really love and will be helpful.
Right.
and then go that route, because I know there are people in my life that would be hurt.
Right. And I finally said it to my kids today. After yesterday, I was like, hey, I get really stressed out during this time of year, and I want it to be perfect for you guys, but it's mostly because I feel like a bunch of things are bought that aren't necessary, and it's bought just for the sake of buying something.
Yep.
And I'm obviously a quality time person. That is my love language, and physical touch. So having you physically in my presence where I can see you and squeeze you and pet you, especially as an adult child that I don't get to see all the time, right? That fills my cup.
Yeah.
It fills my cup to have you around me. And my kids know, like, you're very rarely around me that I'm not touching you.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe to their annoyance, I'm not sure. But it literally is like I can feel my cup every time I just like rub their shoulders or rub their hair, or give them a little kiss on the cheek, or squeeze them because I don't get to hold them. It's just, as a mom, you miss that after they're adults,
Right.
And so when they're around, I want all of that all the time. I want to squeeze them and touch them and hold them and pet them. And and that is my love language, to have them around. The rest of it I don't care about.
Yeah.
I don't care about the gifts. And so then when I feel like I'm being mandated to gift you something, like if my kids need anything as adults even now, okay, what can I do for you? Right? Like, I'm happy to help you all year long, but then I feel this mandate, right?
Yeah.
And so I finally said that. I was like, I get really stressed out. I want it to be good for you guys. I don't want you to feel like I don't care about you, but at the same time, I totally think this is bullshit. We buy a bunch of shit we don't need. So my kids they all grow their own food. The girls started this year. Chaz and Devin have done it for a couple of years. And I'm like, what can I give you that helps you be more of a producer?
Yeah.
And less of a consumer?
Yeah.
And like the fact that you guys are growing your own food makes me so proud. What can I do to help you further that along this year? Right. So I was like, I can get you grow lights. I can get you like seedling starters so that you can start all of your plants indoors before you need to transplant them outside, get a jump start on your gardens. And I'm like, if there's something you really need, I'm happy to get that for you for Christmas. But this is what I'm thinking. And I'm going to take the rest of the funds that I would normally spend, and we're going to play some fun games together.
Yeah.
There's going to be prizes.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to care if it's even.
Yeah.
Whoever wins the prizes wins the prizes. You may go home with a couple $100. You may go home with nothing. I don't know. But we're all going to go home knowing that we've had a memory created, and smiling and having a good time and looking forward to these events again.
Yeah.
Right? That's my goal this year. And that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And the response was great. They were like, we'll look and see what we need, or the stuff for the garden will be great. And, no expectation. And I'm like, the babies need nothing. Like, they have so many toys. And I'm like, I'm going to get them one combined gift that they have for the play barn. And that's it.
Yeah.
I'm not buying them hundreds of things just so they have a ton of stuff to unwrap from Juju and G-Paul. I'm not falling into that trap of excessive gift giving for the grandbabies to make them feel like the grandparents love them. Just not going to do that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be about having a good time. And I think that's what's most important in my life. And so it feels authentic to want to produce that and have the holiday feel that way, instead of feeling like I'm forcibly giving them a gift that I have to figure out if you're going to like or not.
Yeah.
And, and then is it even? And did I spend enough money? And did I on each of you? And
it's too much.
It's too much. Hate it.
Yeah, totally. And I think, not to take a hard right, but I also think, like, in general, most of us are just getting what we want when we want. That's part of this whole problem from the roots. And
you're wrong about that.
I mean, who now
Which
says,
is also a place of privilege, right? That we yeah.
But who now says, oh, I'll wait for Christmas.
Yeah.
It's July. I need a new vacuum. I'm gonna wait till Christmas so my mom has something great to give me that I really. No one does that, and that in itself is what makes a holiday even harder.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You and I both know your brother, my husband.
Oh yeah,
the hardest person on the planet to buy for.
Every year, I just look for, like, last year I made everyone blankets, which was a labor of love.
I mean, they were amazing. Still our favorite blanket of all time.
I love that. And I have the same color one as you guys. I use it every single day. It's the best blanket.
It every day.
It's the best. Do I maybe now have crippling arthritis because of last season?
Possibly.
Potentially. But I try to find something really interesting for people. And so this year, I was just thinking, like, what can I get him that's like fun, but he can use?
Right.
And so I found Snoop Dogg's cookbook from crook to cook.
Shut up. Oh my God, he's going to love
I
that.
mean,
You guys, he's a huge rap fan.
And he loves Snoop Dogg.
I had no idea that Snoop even had a cookbook.
Well, it's because he's been with Martha. They've been friends now.
Oh my God.
It's literally called From Crook to Cook.
Oh my God.
And I thought, what a fun gift for him. Obviously, it's not that expensive and whatever, but like there's a bunch of recipes and like it's Snoop Dogg and it's all like the stuff about him too. And like
he'll love that book. He'll love, I mean, he has a lot of food books anyway.
He does.
So that would be a keepable thing for him. He would love that.
And I know I don't want to say he collects food books, but I know he likes them.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to give him just like a normal one. I thought, like, what could I, so it's little things like that where I feel like if you can stop for a second and say, like, I don't know, even though I don't cook a lot, I do love when people give me cookbooks. And I think, like, when I do have a time, I can crack something open and learn. I can learn something.
Right.
It's a skill.
Right.
It's something to learn. So anyway, but I do want to talk a little bit though about fashion. So this is something that has been bothering me for a long, long time. And I'm going to go on a quick little story path here, but
this is segueing into what we can do. What can we do to help offset some of these consumeristic ways that we have?
Yes. And a lot of it, I believe every single one of us can, no matter what kind of money you have. Actually, the less money you have, the more you're probably already doing this.
Yeah.
Kind of. But is around fashion. And as someone who has gone from size 4 to size 3X at least twice now, I am constantly in a situation where my clothes do not fit.
Yeah.
Right now, all of my clothes are all way too big.
Yeah.
At least 2, 3, some even 4 sizes too big, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in this situation where I'm finding myself really, really, really stressed out. I'm needing to dress up a few times a week now and some other things, just really struggling to find clothes in my own closet. Because last time I was this size was 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Was the last time that was too long. Like I don't have any of those clothes anymore. And there's a situation where there are some really nice clothes that are made from the right kind of fibers that aren't microplastics, all these things. Those clothes are really expensive. I also cannot afford those clothes right now.
Right.
So the responsible and real thing to do is to start thrifting and going places and going to clothing swaps, doing things like that I can get clothes that are my size that most people, I think I have a stat in here, most people wear their clothes 10 times max before giving them away.
Right.
And those giving away always ends up in the landfill, by the way. So that's an option and that's reasonable. However, there are companies now, Shein, Temu.
Yeah.
Both of these companies make fast fashion incredibly affordable. It's all synthetic materials.
Yep.
It's all made of microplastics. Can get to you in a week.
Or less. Days.
They are, though, across the seas, and it does take a lot of time to get those things. But the point is, you can get a whole new wardrobe for $100. You can get 10 new dresses.
I don't know if Shein's got a warehouse or something, but I'm telling you that my 2 youngest bonus daughters love Shein.
Yeah.
And they place these orders and they're coming faster and faster.
Well, I'm sure they've figured it out now.
Yeah.
But fast fashion is responsible for 8 to 10% of all global carbon emissions. I think that is crazy. That is more than all international flights.
Right.
People want to blame things on the bigger problems, right? If you think about fashion industry being more problematic than international flights, that is bonkers. What it does to pollute our planet, it's the biggest consumer of water. The ripple effect that this fashion industry has is insane.
It's huge footprint.
And we would rather spend $100 on 10 outfits that go bad after 10 wears.
If that. I will tell you that some of these Shein things, like
I know.
you can't wash them.
No.
You can spray water on them and spritz them up a little bit, but if you wash them, they just are, all the hems come out of them, the strings come out of them.
Well,
like, they're terrible.
It's even so. I even wrote this down because I thought this was so terrifying. But washing our synthetic clothing accounts for 35% of all microplastics in the ocean.
Yep.
It's the largest source of microplastic pollution.
Yep.
Look, I don't always love like reading things verbatim, while we're chatting about these things, but I do think
statistics in this is pertinent.
We're too flippant about wanting things, and we don't really think about that. 35% of the ocean's microplastics are from us just washing.
Right.
Not buying these at throwing them in the landfill, are from washing them.
Yep.
Think about how cheaply made they are.
Mm-hmm. Well, and now 90% of the population on Earth, because, if it doesn't go to a landfill, a lot of these plastic things have to get incinerated. Well, if it's incinerated, it goes into the air. And then we breathe it in, and it ends up in our bloodstream. It ends up in semen of men. It ends up in all of the things, right? They take samples of lung tissue, and it's in our lung tissue. We're breathing it. It's in our bloodstream. It's in our food.
Yeah.
It's in all the things. Right?
They opened up a fish, and the stomach was filled with plastic.
Yeah. Big chunks of plastic.
Huge.
Terrible.
I was like, what the hell is happening?
It's eating it, thinking it's food.
And I just feel like this is one of those places that community come together. If we're all buying so much shit, we all have this stuff. You take it to Goodwill. First of all, people don't love going to Goodwill.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that, obviously, whatsoever, but there's just stigma around that. And they end up throwing a lot of that away.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what can we do? I know I keep plugging this, but having things like clothing swaps within your community of people who, let's be honest, if you're hanging out with the same people enough, you kind of like each other's fashion choices, or like you like vibe with it, or there's going to be things that you enjoy about the people that you're around, what they're wearing.
Right.
Have these events.
Right.
It's just like a yard sale, but no one makes money and everyone gets to leave with some shit.
Right.
We all have tons of stuff that we can leverage to give to people. I think I have, if you saw me right now, you would laugh. I think I have decent fashion sense for the most part.
You do.
Other than my tie-dye Bigfoot shirt that I'm wearing right now. But I just think like, okay, some of these things I wore, but I was losing weight, and the time happens, right? And you're losing weight, and your first is just one size. So then you're just buying a few things that are one size different.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, I went from a 2X down to either a large or medium right now.
Right.
That's a big gap of clothing than I had to purchase. And I just think so many of these were worn way less. And it wasn't because I got tired of it and wanted something new.
Yeah, it just didn't fit anymore.
Most of that was out of necessity. And how many other people also deal with the same thing?
Right. Well, even if it's not a major shift in weight, it could be a slight shift in weight for some people. Yeah. It doesn't fit anymore, right?
Totally.
Like, for women especially, it gets tight in the bust, or it gets tight in the hips, whatever that looks like. That can fluctuate just with your period, for fuck's sake,
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be huge shifts, but you'll be like, oh man, every time I try to wear these and I'm premenstrual, I can't hardly zip them up, so I don't wear them very often, or like, you just don't know what that looks like when you purchase something sometimes, and how it really is going to play out into your day-to-day wear. And so you end up not wearing it, or you're like, oh, I love that, but I don't wear it very often. Where can I wear this more? And you're like, well, I just don't really have the occasion, and it sits in your closet and you don't wear it very often, and then it sits there for years maybe, and then suddenly you're like, I clearly am never going to wear this. I like it and I want to wear it. My lifestyle doesn't really allow it. And so now I'm going to get rid of it somehow. Right. But how do we get rid of it? And now it's perfect, hardly worn 10-year-old item that has maybe been worn 2 or 3 times. Yeah. And you're ready to get rid of it. Right. So that's what these swaps can do. Yeah. Is they're really great. It gives them somebody else to love them. Yeah. Right. And that's what I tell people about clothes and items in their house too, as a designer. Like,
well, that's why I wanted you to talk on this for a minute, because I think something that you do very, very well, that I think places like Home Good and Marshalls, which by the way, donate a lot of money the politicians who do not care about the earth. That is facts. You can go online. I'll link the resources. There's a organization called earth.org that gives you the resources to show people. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, it does not matter. It will show you who is giving money to companies, which companies are giving money to politicians who do not give a shit about this earth, that will continue to use their platform to put business and profit over the planet. So that's like really incredibly important to understand that. Also, when you're shopping at places that you think are maybe cheaper than going to another high-end home goods store, sometimes going to places like TJ Maxx and Home Goods, although we all love them, can end up being detrimental in different ways. So
right.
You are so good at finding things in thrift stores or secondhand through Facebook Marketplace and like making things look so beautiful. Can you just talk a little bit about like your process of when you want a new thing, like where you go first, and then what kind of pushes you over the edge to say, okay, I need to go buy this new?
I think a couple of things. I will try really hard to find it secondhand if I can. I think there's lots of people who, for whatever reason, don't use an item very much. Or I really believe that vintage items, most furniture items, are so better made. Even though stylistically sometimes they're not in the right style, but paint goes a long way for some of those things. And that really great pieces, I think, span the test of time. So if you mix them with other more modern things, you can really get away with it. And they're well made.
Yeah.
They're well made, heavy pieces of furniture that aren't going to fall apart. The IKEAs of the world and these fast furniture places are in the same boat, friends. They're meant to fall apart in a short period of time. So you have to replace them. And then where does all that shit go? It goes in the landfill somewhere. It goes into an incinerator. It's plastic and pressed wood, so you can't repurpose that into anything else. It just falls apart,
Yeah.
So finding really quality pieces of furniture, I feel like you can find them still being made new. That's true. They're expensive. And so if you're working with a budget, I do feel like you can put a lot of vintage dressers. There's a lot of people out there who are repurposing those and painting them and giving them a more modern spin. It takes some talent to do that for sure. But even the ones that you don't paint, you can, I have a lot of vintage pieces in my house.
Yeah.
And now it fits with the fact that we bought an 1800s farmhouse. But even in the old house, it was a newer home and it looked great in there. Nobody walks in and goes, oh, this feels old fashioned, or that you have all these vintage pieces in here. So I do feel like going thrifting and finding, especially like hard surface items, so bed frames, dressers, tables, bedside tables, accent tables, those are easy to find, I think, when you're thrifting. Things that hold on to odors, like that can smell like antiques and stuff like that, have like couches and chairs. Some of those you can get. The chairs are easier. The sofas can be more difficult. They hold on to people's smells in their homes, and it's hard to get those scents out.
Yeah.
So I have a tendency to go towards purchasing newer items that are like that, mattresses, soft surface type things. But I just got Facebook Marketplace for the party barn. I just bought a leather sofa and chair.
Yeah.
And they're one of the most comfortable things I've ever owned.
Yeah.
And we wanted that space to feel eclectic because it's basically things we've collected over the years that we couldn't fit into the house. And it looks great, but it's not meant to be fancy. Right? It's meant to be homey and feel worn and rustic and feel good, and it's exactly that, right? And so that led to that same feeling. For me, it's about what does it feel like, not what does it look like, right? Because it can, if you make a space feel good, people don't care what it looks like. They
For
feel
sure.
what they like, how it makes them feel, and that space feels like you're wrapped in a blanket.
Totally.
And that comes by color choices and a whole bunch of other things in the design world, but it's cool when you make somebody feel good. You don't have to worry about the aesthetic of it being the new hot, shiny thing. And I think that's where fashion, as well as, I watch people on Instagram who can take vintage items and vintage clothing and make them look amazing. With other pieces in their wardrobe, but still, like, they look I would never walk by that person and go, oh, they're dumpster diving or thrifting, or I'd be like, man, that is a real fashionable human.
Yeah.
Right? So I think you can do that with home interiors as well. You can use mirrors and old mirrors and give them a new paint color. You can use old frames and have the glass and put a freestanding picture behind it, right? Like you can use these things in a modern setting and give them a whole different vibe. Totally. And so I just, it's just part of what I believed in. And when I started doing design is that you can make, it's about how a space feels.
Yeah.
It's not about using the new hottest best brand or the new hottest best style. Most people don't know how to put all those things together. They just see something that they like, and you have to figure out how to marry what you have already, unless there's not very many people who just go out and afford to buy everything brand new.
Right.
To match, right?
It's almost like sometimes I do the stupidest shit. I'm like, why? But okay. What this also reminds me of is you're on Pinterest, okay?
Right.
You see someone with bomb fucking hair. You said that hair looks. I want that hair.
I want it.
So you
take it to your
take a little screenshotter, okay? You take it into your salon person, and they say, "Ma'am, you have." I'm speaking for me. You have thin.
You're speaking for every woman on the planet. We've all had this experience, ladies. You know we have.
You have thin, wavy at best hair, okay? You want. I'm pointing at Cristi and her luscious locks of curly hair. You want this. Okay. A few things. That's never going to work for you, right? And I think that we do the same thing with fashion. We see like this outfit. How many times have you bought an outfit that you saw from Amazon, from an influencer, and said, oh yeah, I want that. And then you get it, you're like, oh damn, I also don't have her body though.
Right.
Like that's not going to look. And I think same thing with spaces. You see these beautiful homes and you're thinking, okay, I want to do that. And then you are like, well, A, this isn't my style. B, this is costing me so much money. And now the space doesn't even feel good because it's not what I
do this major treatment, right? Like what I feel like people get caught up in is they're like, let's say it's like wainscoting is a big deal. Or let's say even like shiplap. That was a big deal.
What is that?
That's the boards that you put up that have the little lines, and so it creates this very nautical looking thing. It's very farmhouse chic currently to do shiplap. That's cool.
Yeah.
You can't go into a modern home and throw up a bunch of shiplap in one room.
Right.
And think that the rest of the house is going to feel okay.
Yeah.
That room's going to feel totally out of place.
Yeah.
But so you've given this a very nautical, rustic farmhouse look, and you've got a very modern home, right? Like sometimes people see that and they just love it so much in that space, but translating it into your space, you do it. Right. That's where you get those Pinterest fails, right? There's a whole section of that. Like, tried it. This is what it looked like, how it turned out in my house. I think we all fall subject to that. And unfortunately, it's more of what we're talking about, right? Is that we're being targeted. They very much want us to love that. Yeah. They very much want us to love that little picture of that little corner that they curated exactly perfectly. Right. That's not how people live. And it's not how everybody's house looks. And translating that into your own house is a real talent with the designers and painters and all kinds of people have. That not everybody can figure out, like, okay, well, how do I like that? But that's not going to exactly correlate in my home. So how can I figure that out and incorporate pieces and parts of that? Or can I just like it? Well, it's not really mine.
That's the thing is how many times also have you seen an item for sale? The marketing is done beautifully. It looks beautiful in the space that it's in. And then you get it. You're like, wow, that's like a bag of shit. Like, why did I? But to someone who doesn't have your talent of design, you see this thing and it creates this image of your space that you think is going to pull it together. And that takes skill. It's not something that everyone can do. And I think that's why, I know you said it, my friend Haley said it before, just buy a bunch of things that you love and you'd be surprised
how it comes together.
Yeah. You see all 745 plants in this house? Yep. Most of those are babies from other plants. And let me tell you, I love plants. And I'm sure it's not everyone's cup of tea, but no one else has to live here.
I'm decorating these days. Yeah. It's pretty much my decor. Yeah. Right? I'm using plants to decorate. Yeah. And so, but that's what we love.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's exactly right. Just find the things that you love.
But no one's going to market to you a bunch of spider plants around your house, because when I say they're more than free, they are a nuisance of being able to produce as many spider plants as you could ever want. If anyone wants spider plants, let me know.
Right.
These things are free. You can propagate anything.
Right.
And so that's not profitable. Most of the things you look at, that's why, like, if there's Yellow Springs, Ohio always comes to mind. You think of like hemp clothing, you think of hippies and patchouli and all these, but really the sustainable fibers and threads and these things that like you can do and you can buy that, yes, maybe are expensive up front, but they're going to last forever. The thing is, the internet and other people and big businesses are going to tell you that those things are out of style the moment you get them. And you have to mentally jump over those pressures to say, but this is a garment that's going to last me a long time. That's good for this earth that I can wear over and over again. And I don't need to be seen in a brand new outfit every time I'm in a picture on Instagram. I don't need that.
Right. And they're starting to have, shoes that are made completely. I love that from the guy that used to be the CEO, I think, of marketing for Adidas, and that the show we watched. Now is supporting a company who's doing all plant-based shoes.
So we'll just go back into the earth.
Literally, it'll just decompose in no time, right? And it's not like the plastic ones that stay around forever. Hemp is whole another thing. It can be made into clothing. It's such a versatile plant that I'm hoping that the more that marijuana becomes legalized in the United States, that we go back to growing hemp. It was a sustainable way to make clothes, paper, goods, all the things, right? And it was made illegal because of its association with THC, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that we get back to some of those sustainable things that gets us away from plastics.
And it was made illegal, by the way, because it's cheap.
Correct. Yeah, it was kind of as a competitor to what was it they told us?
Was it paper industry? Wasn't that it?
I think it was the paper industry.
Because that's why, this is a whole nother podcast, but just that's why, different remedies that are all natural. We'll get into that in some other episode, but a lot of those things are just based upon financials, which is the whole point of this entire episode is follow the money, follow who's benefiting from you having these behaviors. If you can help it, do not feel bad. If you can't do certain things, control what you can control.
Right. Start little. That's what I say, is that I feel, and I think Amanda shares in this, is that if you get into your headspace about, oh my gosh, we're killing the planet. I do little things that I get my family on board with every day. We have not bought a plastic bag, like a baggie, in years.
Good.
Much to the detriment of my family members.
Yeah.
They hate it.
Yeah.
They're like, can we please just have regular baggies that you put our chips in to go to school? And I thought it was embarrassing. Turns out it doesn't keep them very fresh for very long in their little lunch bags, the paper ones.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
You're fine.
There's also reusable Ziploc bags.
There are. We go back and forth between families. Yeah. So I found that I never got those back and they're expensive. So the paper is, and I buy paper bags and they have their paper little lunch sacks that they take to school every day. Yeah. And they've gotten very used to it now. Yeah. But it was a fight in the beginning. So I hear you guys. The convenience factor is huge. And, we take old clothing and make them into rags around the house. We have dogs and a farm now. And I have the need for rags constantly. I also have been making my own dryer sheets, which is really easy to do, and they're reusable with vinegar and like essential oils. Do they work as good as the chemicals? I would be lying if I said yes. Right. But it gives them a little bit of a fragrance that's non-toxic. It doesn't interrupt your endocrine system. It doesn't mess with your hormones. And it's good for the environment. Right. I'm not putting those little sheets that never degrade into the trash. Right. I'm not putting all of those chemicals on our body every single day. Right. So it's little things, right? Yeah. And if you guys need help with any of this, please hit us up. I'm happy to help anybody who feels overwhelmed by it, because I've definitely been in that boat. Start small. Yeah. And for us, that was, I don't buy plastic water bottles ever. We invested in a reverse osmosis system under our kitchen cabinet. By the way, I would say 6 months worth of water bottles pays for that. Yep. And you get yourself a water bottle that you carry around every day that fits in whatever it is you need to fit in.
That you can put stickers on.
That you can definitely put Untamed Blossom stickers all over. And you refill it.
Yeah, totally.
And it's a great solution. And our kids have gotten very used to that. And they did buck us in the beginning. And like, why? They are used to the convenience, dudes. We get it.
Yeah.
They wanted all of that stuff. Why don't you buy water bottles? Just buy us water bottles. Like, I invested in really great purified water that I know is not only clean but also remineralized for you to perfection. I have no idea what are in these water bottles.
Right.
No idea what quality of water's in that.
Yeah.
Now I know what I'm giving you.
Yeah.
And it's good for the planet.
And now they're used to it. And now it's trendy to carry a water bottle too, which is very helpful.
Now they have their Stanleys, right?
It's very
Stanleys for Christmas.
And that's a good example of doing what you can, right? Like, okay, so you're spending $100 on a Stanley. I don't know how much they cost because I got a knockoff for $20. Point is, though, it doesn't matter if that's going to prevent someone from using. They drink one water bottle a day, 365 water bottles a year.
Right.
It is worth that. $100 for a Stanley cup. It is worth it.
It's worth it.
And so to your point, I think it's just making those little changes. I have a quick list, I think, of just some quick things I'll add in the show notes, but educate yourself around sustainable clothing. I think it is easy to automatically assume it's way too expensive.
Yeah.
But if the next point on here is buy less and shop for quality over quantity, do that. Focus on buying and get out of the habit or worry about what other people think. It does not matter. You don't need a new outfit for every single thing. I'm talking to myself also when I say that, but like, you don't need a million things. Have a couple quality things that you can wear over and over. Choose natural materials, organic cotton, linen, or hemp. Like, those are also can be more comfortable.
Yes.
And the problem is, though, is a lot of those aren't form-fitting things.
Right.
They're loose and airy, and that doesn't always necessarily make people think like sexy, fun, cool, trendy, but it's something that you can do.
Although I will say that my girls picked up a whole bunch of 100% linen stuff at Hollister last year before we went to. So some of these places are getting on to, if you look, right, you can find 100% cotton, you can find 100% linen items, and they were trendy, right?
Yeah.
So they got long pants and little cute shorts and a little cute vest because it was something that I'm sure it was just trendy for that season, but you can find some of these trendy things that are made out of good fabrics.
Totally.
Out of the ship. So.
I think that's where it says like educate is so important because you might walk into Walmart and you have a budget. Look at the tags. Like spend some extra time looking at those things so you are aware of what those fabrics are that will help. Because you can also buy 100% recycled fabrics. I actually have a few leggings that are 100% recyclable, and they work just as great, and they're more comfortable in my opinion. 100% recycled polyester, rayon, etc. All those things you can find. You can also research brands to identify those who are ethical and transparent about their sustainability. I think in that Netflix documentary, it also talked about how misleading packaging is.
Very little, right? What percentage was it? 11% of all items, like everything, plastics, clothes, all of it. Only, I wouldn't say it's like less than 10% was actually recyclable.
Right.
Despite what you put in your recycling bin.
And despite what's on the package about them being that shook me.
It totally shook me. Yeah.
I mean, that was probably one of the most.
The recycling, the little chasing arrows doesn't mean that it's really recyclable. There's not really a lot of regulation on being able to put that on packaging, and so it can be misleading. And although you see it, it might be one little part of the packaging that's recyclable.
Yes,
and that they say it for all of it.
Or like, drop this back off at the store, we'll recycle that. Almost all of that goes into a landfill. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. And electronics. I thought the biggest part of that was the fact that it's getting shipped out to Thailand and these workers that don't know any better are getting exposed to all these toxic chemicals because of our throwaway electronics. Yeah. So they can be fixed. There's places that are fighting for us to fix them and to keep them long term instead of having them be replaced every 2 years.
Almost everything can be fixed
right
with the know-how or the right resources. Even your clothes. Yeah. You can fix your clothes. There are so many people who would love to learn how to embroider, how to sew, all these things. If you know someone who knows how to do that, host a workshop together.
Right.
someone brings something for everybody. Like, there's many things that you can do community-wise to learn how to do those things.
Right.
Learn to crochet, learn to knit, learn to sew, learn to embroider, all these things that can help things go so much longer. I saw this woman who repairs clothes by embroidering patches over holes.
Oh, nice.
And they're so cute.
So cute.
People crochet their own garments all the time. Like, there's so many things that you can do to repair what you can versus throwing that away.
Right.
Love
that.
I love this one because if you're going to influence, use it for good. Post a picture of yourself wearing a sustainable garment, explaining its attributes and why you like it, and then tag one of these movements on social media. So the earth.org or these other places that promote this so they can then promote it. You can use influence behavior for good. Like, you can use your platform for good by giving light to that, and also light to the brands in your own community and places to shop local. We do that a lot with our Sober Besties page. We're constantly highlighting. It's just like the things we were saying earlier about sometimes it's hard to find things locally.
Right.
It's also hard to find NA options locally until enough people come into your location because they saw on Instagram or Facebook that you have a bomb mocktail menu. Right. They're like, okay, I'm coming here because they're actually serving mocktails. It might take some time. It might be a loss for that business for a little bit, but eventually people will come to support your business for having those things. Right. So if you find sustainable items or local places, give them their flowers, shower them with attention on social media. It's the fastest way to get things accomplished.
Right.
Even the secondhand clothing places in your community.
Yeah.
That's a huge one. And the last thing on this list is swap clothes with clothing swaps. And guess what?
Clothes. Guess what we're going to do?
A clothing swap.
So we're going to do it. So in this is the reason for this episode, y'all, is multiple faceted, is that we want to do the clothing swap. And we think, first of all, that can be a great opportunity for you to meet people. And this is another way for all of us girls to get together. But we're going to do it on January 26th.
Yep. Sunday.
1 o'clock.
Yep.
At the Party Barn. So we'll put the address up for anybody. So come ready to set up your stuff, shop everybody else's stuff. We're hoping that whatever we have left over, we might be able to do to help some local charities supporting women. Let them come in and maybe pick up some clothes that is necessary for them as well. So, whatever is left, we're hoping that we can donate to a good cause on top of that. So,
and if you can't make it that day and you want to donate, either of us are happy to drive to you to pick up the clothing items. So don't feel like, you can't participate or whatever because you won't be available. If you have items, we're more than happy to grab them from you.
Absolutely. Or you guys can drop them off to us. We can have it at some point too.
Totally.
Yeah. We'll meet you.
We have one more women's circle this month coming up. So if
December 15th?
Yeah, if you have not bought tickets, you still have some time. I just shared that yesterday. I'll keep sharing it for the next couple weeks. But remember to like us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you listen to us, but you don't follow us, please make sure you do. There's some things that we would love to do to get more out in the community, but we can't until we have a certain amount of followers. So it means so much to us when you share an episode on your platform so someone else can find us. The more we can grow, the more we can do within the community. So please share.
We appreciate it. Until next time, you guys.
Love ya.
Love ya.